Hello and welcome back to part 3 of my building guide. This section is going to be about how to landscape. So I've loaded up a regular Minecraft world and I've found a nice little forest area, and this is what we're going to use for our example. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to clear up this area from all trees. So normally one might use an axe to just cut down every tree, but that can get a bit tedious. So what we're going to use is the flint and steel. So the flint and steel, you only need to light it a few times and it will burn down a whole forest. A smart idea is to be in hard mode, which I am in right now, just so the fire will spread faster, which I'm pretty sure is still in the game, but I'm not completely sure. But just for safety, keep it in hard. So you can just light it up like that, and it will burn. And yeah, I'll get back to you when I've cleared up a bit. And we're back. So I burned down most of the forest in the area. It did take a bit more flint and steel, but I only lit up a few more, and then I just got rid of some spare logs every once in a while. So here we are, and it's much clearer now, but we're going to go a step further. So something that you're probably not going to hear in a lot of places about landscaping is those noises, for one thing, but also a concept that I'm going to call de-landscaping. So the idea is that before you get to landscaping, which is going to be post-build, you need to sort of bend the terrain to your will, and basically by flattening the area and suiting it to what you need before making your build. The reason I advise for this is because it means you can have as much creative freedom as you want with your build, and you don't have to build with the terrain. And then later on, when you're actually landscaping, you can then fill in the parts that do not look natural. So basically the way we're going to do this is by getting rid of this area. We're going to fill in this area. We're probably going to flatten this wall a bit and maybe fill in that pond, make this shoreline a bit straighter. And I'm going to do that all off camera because it's relatively tedious work, but I'll be back when I have de-landscaped. And we're back again. So I have flattened out the area. I've squared off the shoreline. I've sort of dealt with this cliff here. And basically, it sort of looks like a creative building plot on a public server now. And that's what we want for now. But our next step is actually going to be undoing that a little bit. So the next thing we're going to want to do is make contour lines. So for anyone who has seen a height map of like a mountain or something, you've probably seen contour lines. So I'm actually just going to use wool for simplicity's sake. So contour lines map out heights, and they sort of look a bit, I'm just going to make a really bizarre shape or something that looks vaguely like a mountain. They sort of look like this. They're just sort of solid lines that spread out apart from each other and sort of do this little thing. So let's say these are contour lines. So what would happen is this would be on top. So this would be maybe a block higher than this, and this would be maybe a block higher than the base ground. And so what we're going to do is we're going to mark that up, and except that's just going to be all over the place. So we're now able to build our own landscape on top of our de-landscaped terrain. So I'll also do that off camera, but we will be right back. And here are the contour lines. So I laid them out in white wool, and what I did differently from the example that I showed is I actually had them on the level that they will be taking up. So on top here, right by the cliff, we have our top area. This is most likely where the build itself will go. And then you can see it slopes down here, like this, and sort of comes out to a little flat area here, and we have two little geographical features, which I will show off later. First of all, we have sort of a wall here, and over on this side we have sort of a peninsula, which then has another small wall here. So what we're going to do from here is that we're just going to replace this all with grass. And that will be another off-camera job. I'm doing a lot of those, but landscaping can be pretty tedious, but it also is very rewarding. And here it is filled in. So we just put grass basically where there's white wool and in the areas between it. I sort of made this a little bit rounder, and in areas where it got steep, like right here, I put some stone, and also over on that side. And so yeah, this can take a while, especially if you're in survival, but there is one major problem with it, and that is what goes underneath. So at the moment, nothing right now. So what I did is lit it up just so mobs don't spawn. Another alternative is to use half slabs, or if you want, you can just turn it to peaceful. You could also fill this in with dirt, but this takes a really long amount of time, and this time could be better spent doing other things. And also, by having this open space, you can make a basement for your house. I'm just going to point that out. So we're going to cover that back up. So hopefully nothing will spawn down there and make loud growling noises at us. And we're going to move on to the next part, which is just putting the house here. So since this is not the original building guide or the interiors, I'm going to just try to do this. I don't know. It's going to be a natural thing. So I'm going to use a... I'm not having a good time with words today. I'm going to do a Pythagorean theorem. Nope, that's not right. Fibonacci sequence. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's going to be a simple 5x8 house. Very small. And if you want a good guide about how to build with the terrain, there's a Redditor called Sarlacc who makes some very good building tutorials, and I'll link that in the description. So if you want to specifically make your build with the terrain, then you can use that. We're just going to make some matching colors. Do that. Fun stuff. We're not going to do an interior for this because that would just be a waste of time. Just make it look pretty. This house itself is pretty inconsequential. We're just having it here so it can be here. And I'm doing it on camera because why not? Okay, so we have the basic frame for that. And then let's see how bricks look with this. So this is how I actually build. An interesting thing is that I make these guides, but I'm not the best builder in the world. A lot of it is just to teach. You have to have an understanding of what needs to be learned. And because I learned building so recently, I'm still fresh on what you need to learn. And that's what makes me decent at building these guides. So I'm going to finish this off camera, and I'll be right back, and we're going to move on to the next part. Okay, I finished the house. So it's pretty basic right now, just a little cabin. But this is going to be the first part of the actual... of course. So, it's rained at least 3 times while I've been making this. It's really annoying. So, we're going to be using this as our example house in this little area. So, first we're going to be talking about how you can use landscape in directly around the house. So the first thing is flower boxes. So for our flower box we're going to use podzol, just because we have it available, and it looks a bit like mulch. So just a simple way to make a flower box, just do podzol or dirt or grass or whatever you want, and then just put trapdoors around it, and then get some flowers. I'm going to use tulips because those are my favorite flowers, and maybe just like a oxeye daisy in the middle. And there, you have yourself a little flower box. And so you can do this in smaller ways, like you can also have podzol around the front. and you can have a maybe more understated flower box. Let's put some, actually I don't like those. Let's put some poppies and some Arlibru. So something like that. And if you really want, you can have a little fence around them, but I won't put that in right now. So that's how you can directly work with your house to make a more ambient atmosphere. So the next part is going to be about how using trees, shrubs, and bushes. Just a quick note before we move on, I added this path, and the basic way I did this is just it's sort of a random assortment of cobblestone, gravel, and stairs, which don't actually put you down at all. And I added half slabs every once in a while just so it'd be a bit more convenient to get up and down. And so now we're going to move on to trees. So I think our first one should be over here. So we can have like a tree sort of overhanging this little area. So the way you're going to build trees is you're going to start with a trunk, and then you're going to add on the leaves later. So you have to get the basic shape idea. So I haven't really built this ahead of time, so this will be mildly experimental. But you can have roots going out like that, and then a main trunk, and the trunk sort of goes up. So we're going to have this overhanging, so it's going to move in that direction. So it's going to go like that. We're going to move it over. And so you do something like this where you get the shape that you want. I'm going to just replace that. And you have to make sure to hit a balance between thick and thin, because if you make your tree too thick, then it gets a bit unwieldy, and if you make it too thin, it just feels a bit weird. So we're going to have these two main branches going out like this. And also take advantage of sideways logs, because they can end up looking like roots or outstretched branches, but only if you use them correctly. So I'm going to finish laying this out, and I'll jump right back to add on leaves. And we're done laying it out. So as you can see, the branches sort of come over and sort of hang over the water here. So now we're going to add on leaves. So this particular tree is a bit more of a dead tree, because you can see it's sort of limp. Or it could be a willow tree, either way. So this one's not going to have as many leaves. So a good way to start adding on leaves is try covering every side of the log of the parts that you're going to have leaves on. So this is not the way you're going to finish it, but it's a very good way to at least get a general idea of where the leaves are going to go. So we're just going to fill that in just for sake. We're going to cover all this up. So tree building is a very delicate process, I guess, because it's very hard to make something look actually natural. And I'm not a complete expert on it, but I do know a bit. If you could just look up Minecraft tree building, you could probably find a more in-depth tutorial. But anyways, I'm covering this all up. And right now I'm using oak leaves, but if you want something, if you're building in another biome, or you want a consistent leaf color, then I also have spruce and birch leaves, which are the only two that keep their color across biomes. Oak will change. For example, I think this is I don't know, it's still forest, but if you did it in, like over here we have a taiga, the oak leaves are going to change to a darker color, and it doesn't look as nice. So you can see this looks decent from a distance, but then you get up under it, and it doesn't look so nice. And since this is leaning over, just for this particular tree, we're going to sort of have these particular leaves hanging down a bit. So it's going to come over like that, down a bit. So you can see that looks sort of nice. And for this one, actually, we might also take advantage of fence posts. because we're going down. So fence posts can sort of look like a skinnier branch if you use them correctly, and if you're going down. If you use them incorrectly, they can just look like you randomly put some fence posts in. So we have that. So this is a sort of nice tree for an overhang. And over here I built another example tree. So this is more of a strong oak tree. And we have our little base here. The roots come out, and this is a good way to sort of simulate a bigger tree, because you can see the roots come out all the way over here. It has all four sides, and then it comes up top. And basically I just used a lot more leaves, and that's how I accomplished that. So next we're going to be moving on to using bushes. So one of the main reasons that people use bushes, well, there's two main reasons actually. So one is to make things seem more natural, and one is just to sort of organize things. So right here we have one that just makes it look a bit more natural, but it also is just for aesthetics. So over here we have a more strong example of the natural one. So this looks sort of overgrown. We added some tall grass as well, and technically any of these can count as bushes if you really try hard enough. So yeah, I just randomly placed down some leaves and then put some tall grass as well, and it looks a bit more overgrown. Over here we have a completely different example of more organized. So over here we have sort of little, these would be your equivalent of the mini trees. So like a little stem and then some leaves on top. And then also we just have a border bush over here to sort of lay off the path. And then we put some flowers behind it to just make it look pretty. So that is it for bushes really. So next we're going to focus on this area over here. And we're back here, and I have just gone ahead and done what I was planning, and I added a little waterfall with a tiny pond, and then that waterfall goes into this river over here, which connects with the lake. So water and rivers can be a great addition to a medium-sized landscaping project, just because they sort of add a way to split things up and make it a bit more interesting. So you can see I just extended the pathway into a bridge using the same basic materials, except adding a bit more foundation with the stone brick. And this is just a basic bridge. It's not beautiful or anything, just functional. Gets you over here to the other side. And so let's talk about this. So I added some vines for atmosphere. I had to go back a little bit with the stone just so that it would create this effect, just some lily pads. And I also added podzol around the side to make it look sort of like wet mud, a bit more than just regular grass, and dirt wouldn't work because grass would eventually spread to it. And the river is just random. I didn't want to make it too thin, or I didn't want to make it too wide, so it just eventually connects with here. So we're almost done. We just need to add things here and add things here. And so the next part is just going to be adding some basic decorations and finishing things up. And we are back, and it is actually nighttime now, mainly because I'm going to be showing off the new things that I added. So I added quite a few things, and they'll all be gone over in detail in the guide, but I'll go over them in here as well. So first off, I sort of use these scattered fences to sort of rope off this area and separate it from down here, and then I did the same thing to sort of define a border here. And after that I just added some basic lawn furniture, which sort of added to the feeling of the place. So we have our little picnic table here with the umbrella, we have a swing set, and we have a picnic blanket with 2 cups, which look to be full of coffee. Then I added some little gardens down here, and some regular Minecraft trees just for fillers. And then I added these little lanterns, and they're not too impressive. They're just there to provide a little bit of light, which looks very nice at night. But anyways, we're going to now do the last part of the landscaping guide, and that is using bone meal. So bone meal is pretty much the best way to get any area to look natural. And the basic reason for this is it does that. So the trick is to not overdo bone meal, because if you overdo it and everything just ends up looking like some sort of wild field that hasn't ever been mowed in history. So you don't want to have every single block being taken up, but you do want to have grass because it just makes it look a lot more natural. In areas like this, it's okay to maybe go a bit overboard just because it's supposed to be overgrown anyways, but if you're just doing general landscaping, it's best not to go too crazy with it. So we're just gonna come around here, spruce things up, bone meal, bone meal, bone meal, bone meal. Come down here, same thing. And so once you have all this, basically choose the places that you want to look a bit overgrown, like over here, since nobody's really going to go over there obviously since it's supposed to be overgrown, and then we just, everywhere else where it's not supposed to be overgrown, you just sort of break things where you feel they aren't necessary. Usually flowers are best to not keep around for too much. Oh, let's fix that. And yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Make it look like they mow their lawn every once in a while. And you're obviously not going to want to do this for more modern builds, just because a lot of people are probably going to mow their lawns a lot better in the future, but it's a good way to just add a bit of character. Yep. And here we go, our final product. So this is what we created out of the little area that we had before. We cut down all the trees, we de-landscaped, we contoured, we filled it in, and then we just went crazy. So here's the build itself, and here's everything else. So that really wraps it up for this guide. If you enjoyed, then you can leave a like. If you really enjoyed and would like to see more, you can subscribe. And thanks for watching, and until next time, goodbye.